So we got some really cool updates for Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis, including a really awesome collaboration between Square Enix and Capcom in the Monster Hunter franchise, as well as the addition of Vincent Valentine in Ever Crisis, and how it kind of seems like they're giving us a preview of some of the cool stuff Vincent might be able to do in 7 Remake Part 3. So if any of that sounds cool to you, feel free to click the like button, subscribe, comment, and if you like my stuff enough and you want to keep up with it, you can click that bell icon as well to get a notification for when my videos go live. Doing even just one of those things helps out the channel so much, and it is greatly appreciated. Now, before we jump into Ever Crisis, I very quickly want to update the 5 people that watched my most recent Resident Evil video that came out earlier this week. For those of you in the know, there's been so many rumors going around in regards to Resident Evil 9 and other games in the franchise like Zero and Code Veronica getting remakes. And this entire situation has just been so messy because the main source of a lot of this info, Dusk Golem, has just been so back and forth and flippy floppy with their information to the point where I'm not going to cover stuff from that person anymore because it's so unreliable and up in the air. And for example, within the past week or so, and even hours after I uploaded my video on Monday, he flip-flopped on his information from Resident Evil 9 about 3 times over the course of a week, which is insane. And then other people were saying, well, I heard that Code Veronica and RE0 were getting remakes, and then suddenly Dusk Golem is like, oh, well, yeah, I totally heard those too. I'm corroborating them. So this whole situation is just a big reminder of why I usually don't talk about rumors in the first place, because there's no point. People just throw stuff at the wall hoping that it sticks, and it's just kind of annoying at this point. So there's really no point in talking about any of that stuff until Capcom themselves hint at something or give us a trailer to actually speak on. So I just wanted to give some clarification there. Now we can move over into the Ever Crisis details. Now, this information is going to be coming to us from the live stream. Some of it's pretty self-explanatory, and then some of the translations will be coming from Audrey on Twitter, who sat down and watched the entire thing and translated some of the really cool, important bits in regards to the live stream. So starting off first, the host of the event just blatantly says, hey, this game is really hard. I couldn't finish the first Soldier stuff because of how difficult it was, which leads the producer of Ever Crisis, Ishikawa, to say that they're going to be making adjustments to the MSQ difficulty level so that way anyone can jump in and just enjoy the game without having to stress over leveling up your characters and doing all the kind of grindy stuff. And he even mentions himself that the first Soldier episode in particular was incredibly difficult. Now, these balance adjustments are supposed to be hitting towards the end of June in the latter half of the month, which is really reassuring. Now, if you've watched my previous videos, you'll know that I stopped playing Ever Crisis. I really enjoyed the game. I thought it was super fun. The gameplay was cool. And the story stuff that's happening in that game, specifically with the first Soldier, is really well done. And to have it locked behind all this grinding and high difficulty is just really unfortunate. And that's the reason I stopped playing, is because I just hit a level wall that I could not surpass no matter what I did. And I didn't want to grind or pay money to get past it, so I just stopped playing. And it seems like a lot of people probably did the same thing. So for them to make adjustments to allow people to jump back in and hopefully have an easier go at it to get through this stuff, to experience this really compelling story, that's really reassuring to hear. And I can't wait to just jump back in myself so I can just play through it without having to just watch cutscenes online, which is super nice. Along with that information, they finally gave us a clearer version of the Season 2 trailer for the first Soldier, which features young Sephiroth and Angeal in that evil bastard Hojo in super HD quality. And along to go with that, they released this really beautiful artwork of young Sephiroth and young Angeal sitting back to back with one another. Now, there's no word so far on who did the illustrations for this art, but it is gorgeous. The lighting, the fog, the clouds in the sky, it's just a really beautiful image, and it's one of the rare times we get to see Sephiroth just kind of at peace and be a good guy and just not have to worry about all this Genova influence and everything that's going around him. It's just him and Angeal, his best friend, just kind of having a moment together. And that's what they're going to focus on in the Season 2 part of the first Soldier, is the friendship between Sephiroth and Angeal and how that's going to blossom, but also the Masamune. They're going to be giving us the official story of how Sephiroth comes to get the Masamune, which is super cool. So it kind of sounds like they're going to add a lot more backstory and lore to this sword and what it means to Sephiroth, kind of to contrast the Buster Sword and what it meant to Angeal and Zack and now Cloud. So I'm all for that. And that's definitely a question that I've had and a lot of fans have had in the past is, how did Sephiroth get the Masamune? We just kind of assumed that maybe it was something that was made for him by Shinra, you know, because the soldiers seemingly not only get their own unique outfits to wear, but they get unique weapons as well. So how did they come across getting these specific weapons? We know Angeal's backstory with the Buster Sword. If I remember correctly, his father made it for him, spent a ton of money, some of the only money that his family had, gave that to Angeel as a gift when he became, you know, a soldier in Shinra. So I'm very curious to see what the backstory is for the Masamune. Is it super deep? Is it something really simple? What is going to be the symbolism behind this sword and how it connects to Sephiroth? And we're going to be getting that information in the Season 2 for the first soldier. They're also going to be adding guilds to Ever Crisis where up to 30 people can join a guild and do a bunch of cool missions together, which is super cool. So if you're someone that has a big friend group, I'm not one of those people, you can gather your friends and just have a blast in this guild setup for Ever Crisis. And they're also going to be adding some costumes. The two that they show off here are for Lucia and Yuffie. These are their beach body costumes when they're going to be on the beach for some of those events, which look really cool. Obviously they're, you know, bikinis, so they're going to be super revealing. But of course they still have their Final Fantasy isms to them, like Lucia in particular, she still has her sniper rifle as well as ammunition on her hip. And then Yuffie, in place of her weapon, she gets a little flotation device that has a cute little Moogle on it, which is adorable. Now up next is one of the bigger moments of this live stream, and that's the announcement that Square Enix and Capcom will be teaming up once again with the Monster Hunter franchise and Final Fantasy to do a collaboration in Ever Crisis to bring what I believe is the Fire Dragon from Monster Hunter to Ever Crisis. And they show us a trailer of Cloud and Zack in their Monster Hunter gear with their weapons battling this creature, which is just phenomenal. I'm a big Capcom fan. Again, we talked about Resident Evil very briefly in the beginning of this video, and I've only dipped my toe into the world of Monster Hunter. I have World sitting on my PlayStation 5. I kind of want to dip my toe back into it. I just never really found a weapon that I felt comfortable using, and I kind of struggled with certain elements of the game, but it's definitely one that I'd love to revisit just to kind of familiarize myself with the world of Monster Hunter and some of these creatures, because again, this isn't the first time Square Enix and Capcom have teamed up. They did team up for Monster Hunter World, where they brought the iconic Final Fantasy enemy of the Behemoth into the world of Monster Hunter and made that a big event where you and your friends could battle this thing to the death and get some really cool items after you did so. So this is super sick, and this will actually be out on the 31st of May. So this is releasing relatively soon. I don't know how long it's going to be an event for, but it's pretty awesome. And this does give me hope that in the future with the next Monster Hunter game, which I believe is called Monster Hunter Wilds, maybe around the time that game has been out for a little bit, we will get 7 Remake Part 3, and maybe Square Enix and Capcom can team up again on the console side of things to bring some of the characters from FF7 into the world of Monster Hunter and let us do battle like they did with Monster Hunter World and the Behemoth. I think that would be cool to include people like Cloud, Zack, maybe Sephiroth, maybe you throw Barret and Tifa in there, although I don't know how Barret would work because he is a ranged gunner kind of character. And then you can do the reverse. You can have a lot of those really cool Monster Hunter creatures show up in Remake Part 3 as some of the world intel battles. Show a Fire Dragon, show Rathalos, show all of these really iconic Monster Hunter creatures that have made their way into the world of 7 Remake. And with how well written the remake project is, I'm sure they could find a way to take those Monster Hunter creatures and give them lore and a really cool backstory and a reason to exist in the world of Midgar in Final Fantasy VII. It could be super sick if done right. And also the outfits they show off for Cloud and Zack look sick. It's a really great blend of Monster Hunter, monster armor, but still keeping those Final Fantasy isms that we've come to know and love. Cloud in particular, his color scheme is black, red, and a little bit of like bluish with the purple hue to it. His sword looks sick. It looks like a wing of a dragon. And then his armor is still very much in line with what Cloud's armor is in the main game. He still has that big shoulder pauldron that's popping out, but it's now got spikes on it, and he looks super sick. And it's the same with Zack. Zack is almost kind of more like a winter kind of gear. He's got both of his shoulder pauldrons with the armor on them, a little bit of fur, and his sword looks super cool. It almost looks like a combination of maybe bone or wood with some part of a monster in the center of it, and I love the color scheme again. Black kind of seems to be the underlying color scheme with some red accents with gold, but also kind kind of like this cyan teal color going on with the armor as well. They also do show off Tifa, which has a bit of a unicorn vibe, although when I first saw it, I kind of thought snow bunny, which does have multiple connotations in the English lexicon. But hers is, you know, very much in line with like the furry aspect of a monster. She's got the unicorn head on her. Her gauntlets, of course, have the spikes on them, so she's gonna punch with those spikes. And then Aerith's is super cute. She has this really beautiful red and white dress. Her staff seemingly has what looks like a birdhouse on it. Again, I need to familiarize myself more with the world of Monster Hunter to figure out what some of this stuff is. And I also forgot the Monster Hunter outfit for Cait Sith and the Moogle, which is super cute. Cait Sith looks like one of the Palicos from Monster Hunter, which is like your little helper buddy that shows up. You can dress them up in little outfits too. So naturally, Cait Sith being a cat, the Palicos, which I think is what they were called, are also cats, so he gets his own Palico uniform. But I love collaborations like this, especially between two of my favorite companies. So again, I'm still crossing my fingers that this stuff comes to the console side of things in the future. Up next, we got the man himself, Vincent Valentine, being added to Ever Crisis. And what's really cool is Nomura kind of talks about the look of Vincent in this game and how it's a bit of a cross between his 7 Rebirth look and Dirge of Cerberus. But when I look at this, I primarily get Dirge of Cerberus vibes. Maybe it's because of the graphics kind of reminding me of the PS2 era with Dirge of Cerberus, but Vincent in that game, I remember him being super skinny and lean. His coat was super tattered at the bottom, so it really gives me Dirge of Cerberus vibes more than anything, but either way, he looks ridiculously awesome. Now, in terms of some of the abilities they show off, he seems to have a couple of charged attacks. The first one is this really big purple orb that comes shooting out of his gun and creates a massive explosion. The second one almost looks like an elemental attack where he leaps into the air and shoots out like these air wind attacks through his gun to the enemy, which then explode. And then of course we see him transform into the Galleon Beast, which we already saw in 7 Rebirth, which looked amazing. And then he tears into the enemy. So I think this might be a slight preview of how he could perform in 7 Remake. Maybe he's a little bit kind of like Barret in the sense that he's obviously going to be a ranged attacker, but maybe he'll have more charged attacks that do elemental damage to kind of separate him a little bit from Barret. I also would expect him to be super agile. Barret is obviously this big, powerful, hulking tank, but he is very slow. So kind of maybe make Vincent a slightly weaker version of that relies on more elemental explosion stuff, but can move around the battlefield incredibly fast at the speed of light. And then of course there is his limit breaks, the Galleon Beast, which we saw in Rebirth, so it's going to be cool to see how they handle that. I kind of feel like maybe the right path would be to treat him like a summon, so he transforms into that Galleon Beast. We lose control of him, but maybe we can still issue some commands here or there until his timer runs up, he does his ultimate attack, and then he reverts back to his Vincent self. But either way, the addition of Vincent is going to be super cool, and I'm going to assume that maybe the next person they add to Ever Crisis, if he's not in there already, is Cid. We got to see what Cid's going to look like, what he's going to play like. Again, I kind of really feel like the blueprint for Cid was Sonon in Yuffie's DLC. I think maybe just taking that version and making some tweaks here and there, that Dragoon archetype is probably what's going to be best for Cid. And then the last thing they show off is this really cool Buster Sword Penlight, which I've never heard of before, but they're going to be giving them away at the Final Fantasy VII orchestras in Japan. And it's essentially a tiny Buster Sword with 2 lights for the materia slots, and then the blade itself lights up with different colors from like purple, red, blue, and green, which is super cool. I hope they put that on the Square Enix store because I would like to get one for myself just because they look super cool. And that's pretty much it for this live stream. Again, thank you to Audrey for translating a lot of it. And this looks super cool. The updates that they're making are the right kind of updates that look cool, that get people invested. The crossover collab with Monster Hunter looks like it's going to be sick. And I think I will download the game again just to experience the Monster Hunter stuff. And then of course the addition of Vincent is going to be awesome. But again, that main crux of what we're all waiting for is the story aspect of the First Soldier Season 2, Episode 2. Just to see what happens with young Sephiroth and the introduction of young Angeal, and now the focus on the Masamune and what that means to Sephiroth, how he obtains it, what is the symbolism behind that weapon. Everything so far has just been so well written and well done. I cannot wait to see it, but that's probably going to be a few months away before we get the cool story stuff. But with that being said, that is the video. I am Curious Corduroy. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you guys think of these updates coming to Ever Crisis, specifically the Monster Hunter stuff and the stuff with Sephiroth and the Masamune? And would you also like to see another Monster Hunter Final Fantasy collaboration in the future, maybe for the next 7 remake game or the next Monster Hunter? I think it could be super cool. I will see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.